Coming up on the Middle Class VO podcast.
When Marge Simpson gets two big enhancements.
Mom!
It's the biggest thing to ever hit Springfield.
Animation Domination presents a quadruple feature that'll make you laugh so hard you're gonna get abs of steel.
These are your cities.
It's going to Durango and telling stories. It's going to Julesburg and telling stories.
These are your neighbors. CBS 4. The fate of the world is in their hands. Something happened to me. They just don't know it yet.
If you need e-learning, we're just an email away. Corporate narration, tell us what to say. Explainer video, imaging radio, slinging local cars, reading IVR. No, we ain't no stars. This is the Middle Class VO podcast. The Middle Class VO podcast. The Middle Class VO podcast.
We have an injured voice artist with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so honored to have on the Middle Class VO podcast today, Joe Cipriano.
Oh, my
one of the best guys in the business. Joe, welcome aboard. How are you, man?
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Kevin and Bobby. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
We are good, and
Great.
We're so glad to have you on the Middle Class VO podcast. I know it's been a hot minute since we've seen you. I guess in L.A. we saw you in November.
Yes, when you guys picked up your podcast award at Sovis, which was very exciting.
Woohoo!
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. That was so cool. And Joe, we're here to talk about the life and times of Joe Cipriano.
Oh my gosh.
On the Middle Class VO. Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. Let me kind of run down a couple of things.
Okay.
Joe, you've been doing this a long time. You started out as a radio disc jockey. Most everybody knows your backstory. Not everybody knows that you were on such big productions as The Seduction of Joe Tynan. They don't know that you...
What?
That's an Alan Alda movie. It was actually, I think, his first movie. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was, the funny thing, a quick story, one of my best friends, Stoney Richards, he and I worked together in Washington, D.C. We were working at WKYS, and I think we both got fired. I think he got fired first. He was doing mornings. Then I was doing middays, and then about a month later, I got fired because they changed format and went to jazz. And they wanted me to be mellow, and so I tried being mellow and doing the jazz format, and everybody just this is definitely not working. So, and we were in Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA, and gosh, I've been in SAG and AFTRA since the mid '70s, when I moved to DC. So there was a movie that was being shot in Baltimore, and it was Alan Alda's first movie, Seduction of Joe Tynan. They were looking for extras. Stoney and I went and auditioned, and we got the job, and we worked on it for about a week. We had to go up to Baltimore, and it was Meryl Streep's first starring role. That's how long ago it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Meryl Streep was
amazing.
amazing. She sat with all of us, all of the extras, when we would break for lunch. Because she wasn't used to being a star. She didn't think that she fit in sitting over by Alan Alda, I guess. So she hung with all of us extras. Yeah.
Oh, my, how times have changed.
Exactly.
Wow.
Joe has also done announcing work for Married with Children. In a world, of course, the cool project, Iron Chef America, the Extreme Makeover Home Edition. I mean, just on and on and on. And of course, the CBS promos, the Fox promos, ad nauseum. As a matter of Joe,
I was never nauseated by doing those promos.
No, nobody was, clearly, because you kept getting booked for those. And the world is a better place for it, Joe.
And isn't that nice?
Again, Joe is one of the great people in our voiceover universe. And Joe, thanks again for being on the Middle Class VO podcast. Let's go back to some of the early days from when you went from radio to voiceover full time. What are some of the obstacles that you can recall facing, and anything you might have done different for somebody that might be making that transition nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, and I was in Washington, D.C., and I started to work outside of the radio station. There was a very cool ad agency called the Denenberg Agency that started reaching out to me to voice some classy spots, for upscale department stores, and there was some auto and things like that. And at the time, I mean, we're talking, this is like around 77, and it's also a regional market. Washington, D.C. is the 8th largest market in the country. So a lot of the voiceover work kind of mirrored what you were doing in radio. It was like you were presenting. You weren't trying to be, a dad or trying to play the part of someone. You were really pretty much a spokesperson. So the background of radio really worked for that. And so I started to find that I was doing a lot of work, for the Denenberg Agency and for the government in public service announcements and things like that. And it was about that time that I became aware of the big voices of network television, like Ernie Anderson and Danny Dark and all those guys that were in Los Angeles. And I realized that I'm not going to get national work. It's like I really want to get into this network thing. And I figured you got to do either New York City or Los Angeles. And Ann and I, Ann was working with me at NBC. She was a news writer, producer, later went over to Channel 7.
Ann Cipriano, Joe's wife, of course.
And she and I took a trip. We took 10 days. We spent 5 days in New York City, 5 days in Los Angeles, and we were going to decide where we're going to go. And, of course, it was wintertime, and I was kind of pushing for Los Angeles. I chose winter, and we went to New York, and we froze our buns off in New York City, but loved it. But then hopped on a plane and flew to Los Angeles, and I had set up a Mercedes 450 SL convertible to rent, to drive around on Pacific Coast Highway. So I kind of pushed it a bit, and Ann fell
I would call
for
this
it,
more plotting, Joe. This is more plotting.
Right. So we ended up deciding we would go to L.A. And the whole thing that you're asking about, Kevin, that change, I mean, I was very aware of that I still sounded like a guy on the radio rather than a voiceover artist. And that was something that was very, very difficult for any of us that work in radio to, number one, hear it, to understand what it is, because a lot of times we don't hear it in ourselves. And took a lot of classes, a lot of workshops, and I think I never really lost it, but I was lucky that I found promos where having timing and having kind of a radio background really helps. And I was very lucky to kind of fall into that. So
you were kind of one of the, earlier people you hear never put your eggs in one basket. I mean, you were kind of trying different genres all along. Was that something that you just felt like you had to, or your agent was asking you to do it?
Yeah.
I mean, you added radio imaging eventually?
Sure, yeah. No, that's true. And I'm always, whenever I talk to anybody about voiceover, I say, listen, put as much time as you can into it. You have to go 100% into it, but you also have to live. So I was always a big proponent of keeping the day job. And I decided that, I can do this, and I've got radio as a day job, and I can be on the air 4 or 5 hours a day, and the rest of the day and evening, I can dedicate to pursuing voiceover. So I was really big on, once I started to work in voiceovers in Los Angeles and started to get an agent, and I worked on some network spots for ABC at the time. This is early 80s. I did a bunch of trailers, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Porky's, Bachelor Party. I mean, a bunch of these teen movies that I was doing the voiceover for. But I never trusted it. I never trusted voiceover enough to say, okay, I'm going to give up radio and I'm going to jump into it full time, and I waited 10 years. I was working, but it wasn't enough to really depend on. And it wasn't until Fox picked me up as the voice of their network of all of their comedies in 1988 that then I was making a living that was, multiple times more than what I was getting in radio, but I still didn't trust it. I did not want to put all my eggs in one basket, and I waited 2 years before I finally walked away from radio and was in voiceover full time.
I want to talk a little bit about what's going on. We've talked about the history a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the state of voiceover today. And I know Bobby had a really important question about what's going on in the state of voiceover today.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm just curious. When you think about how you got your start in voiceover, how do you view that, your voiceover past, compared to today with the onslaught of the pay-to-plays and the home studios and the production houses? I mean, you obviously knew you were probably going to have to kind of make a turn there, but how do you view the whole thing, the whole change?
Well, and you know it, we all know it, how different it is now. I mean, there are a couple of ways to look at it. First of all, it's extremely competitive, and you're up against so many people that want to do what you want to do, or that what you are doing, and so the competition is ridiculous right now, because it used to be, for me, if we just pick promos, network promos. Well, there was only one thing to do. You had to move to Los Angeles, and you had to get good, and then you had to get good and lucky, and maybe get booked on something, and then see where that goes. And now you might look at that now, and you go, "Wow, there are only 3 networks. Fox was the 4th network that came on the air. There were only 1, 2, 3 voices per network at the most. So it was a handful of people, doing it. On the one hand, you can go, well, gosh, you had to be in Los Angeles. Sure, there's a lot of competition, and there's only a handful of people doing it, but the odds maybe are a little bit better than the fact that worldwide, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who want to do voiceover, and you're in competition with all of them. But then you look at the fact that there were 4 networks then. Now there are thousands of cable channels and outlets, and so there's a lot more opportunity. So it just depends. I look at it now, and I feel that, gosh, if I was getting into the business now, I would be as committed and I would work as hard. I feel that it'd be a little bit daunting, because, we didn't have voiceover conferences. There weren't 750 people getting together in Atlanta and talking about voiceover. It was unheard of, And also, I come from the side where I was already in the union. So I was able to audition for, the big gigs, for network television, for union commercials and things like that. But then again, being in the union, it stops you from all of these other opportunities that you can get with online casting in the non-union side. It's a crazy world.
Well, with the union thing, you add another element, because you have the right to work states, and people can be union and non-union. So it just goes another step forward.
Absolutely. And there are so many other ways where you can work both sides of the game. And and that creates a lot of opportunity for people. But if I look at it at the overall, I think if I look back to when I was starting, there were not a lot of opportunities. There were only a couple of slots. There weren't very many lanes, to get into. And today, there are hundreds and hundreds of lanes. Sure, there's a lot more people, but I think that if you're dedicated to it and you work at it and you trust yourself and you continue to learn, never stop learning. If you keep a positive attitude, I think that you can definitely be a success today, just as you could have back then when I was starting out.
A penny for your thoughts,
Joe, is there anything that you would want to change nowadays? If Joe Cipriano had a voiceover magic wand and could cast any kind of spell of change on the industry, what would it be?
Free donuts in every studio. And I'm waving my wand right now. Here it is.
Hey, watch where you point that thing.
Is there anything that I would change? I have to admit that, in talking with the differences, I have a lot of empathy for people who are starting out in the voiceover industry. And you can tell when I meet people at conferences, you can tell people that are on a path to success. And there are a number of things involved. There's, the talent, how seriously they're taking it, just how aware they are of what the industry is. And I wish there was a way to help those people that that get it and that are working extremely hard at it and that want it so desperately. There are a lot of people out there, and sometimes just the sheer volume of the amount of people out there makes it difficult for the ones that are very serious about it and really want to make this their life's work and their passion. So I wish I could wave a little wand and help those folks a little bit.
That's so funny because when I thought of this question to ask Joe, Bobby, I'm addressing you with this, is I knew or I suspected that Joe would come from the heart. And that's exactly where it came from. And, empathy for the people that are grinding and they're working at it and really serious about their craft. And
absolutely.
I wouldn't expect anything different from Joe Cipriano.
Well, thank you.
That's amazing.
And you know what? Quite frankly, the donuts help.
Well, in all seriousness, I mean, if you took 100 people and asked their opinion of Joe Cipriano, I would be willing to bet that upper 90s would say he is a real legit guy and he gets on your level and just, there's no highfalutin about Joe Cipriano.
Well, thanks.
I met you the first time at a Midwest Voiceover Conference in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
And I couldn't believe you were showing me how to do promos. I'm going like, do you know who this is? and you're awesome.
But thank you, Bobby. I love that. I love when I'm doing a workshop about promos, and when I did it with Bobby as well. And whenever I do it, I bring actual network promos with me. I do it as if it's a network session. Whether it's an ISDN session or if you're in person, you're reading to picture. Obviously, if you're ISDN, you don't see the picture. But I want it to be a real world experience, so that not only, there's a lot going on when you're doing promo. The first thing is it feels like you're on a freight train. The spot starts and you're just constantly trying to keep up. And then when you finally master that, then it's like, oh, yeah, I have to do something with the words, too, So there is a lot going on.
Yeah. That's true. And I'll just recount quickly. My first time meeting Joe was just getting off the train in France. And we all arrived for the JMC retreat about the same time to be picked up. And I went over and said hi to Joe, and Joe was just a ray of sunshine. Did
he say bonjour?
No, he did not. He said buongiorno.
Buongiorno, signore.
Oh.
Yeah. We had just come in from Italy, I think, and Ann and I were there, and I think Dave Fenoy and his wife Mo, and there were a whole bunch of us.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the first time meeting you guys, and it was just amazing. And coming up in just a couple of minutes, a little radio tease coming up in just a second. We're going to get Joe on a cold read challenge. And Joe, if you're up for that, here coming up in a couple of minutes, I'm going to shoot you a script.
Okay.
You just kind of look over the direction really quick and then dive into the read.
I love it.
If you're up for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Going to have a lot of fun with that. And speaking of radio, you're still doing a lot of radio imaging, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I love staying involved in radio, and it's something that Bobby alluded to earlier about, not putting all your eggs in one basket. I mean, I've been there when I was the voice of the Fox network, and at the same time, I was the voice of the CBS network. So that was kind of like a unique sort of opportunity. And I kind of thought, you know what? This is a pretty good biz. I like this. I'm the voice of Fox. I'm the voice of CBS. And what I did was I just kind of relied on that, and I stopped looking for other opportunities because I was so busy. And I figured, well, this could go on for forever. And guess what? It doesn't. And I lost the CBS gig. And thankfully, it came back to me about a year later, and I went on to do it for another 8 years. But when I lost it, it was more than half of my income was gone. And it was then that I said, okay, I'm never going to do that again. So I'm always looking for different genres that I feel that I can be successful in. And it's different for all of us, depending upon our skills and what our interests are. But for me, live announcing and doing things like the Emmys, the Grammys, and all of those shows, that was something that then I said, okay, I'm going to go after that. I'm going to also go after in-show kind of narration. I enjoy doing that. Game shows. I really like doing game shows. I'm going to put myself out there for that. And then radio imaging was kind of like a natural for me because it just kind of happened to me while I was still in radio and just starting in voiceover, doing a couple of radio stations here and there. And I still keep up radio imaging because, I look at a lot of these things. If we look at it financially and creatively, I love doing a lot of different genres because it opens you up and you stretch. Financially, it opens up the income streams so that if you lose something, it doesn't hurt as much. So with radio imaging, it's something that I enjoy doing. It fits perfectly into my day because I'll get emails from my radio stations, and I'm usually working every day on a few of the radio stations. I think I have about 25 right now. So it all evens out. And, it's just enough. It's not too much where it really bogs you down and you can't do anything else. And I'll get an email, and the deal is I'll always get it back within 24 hours, and usually I get it back within a few hours. And I can slot that in my day. Like before our conversation here, in the morning hours, that's when I do my radio imaging. And I have a couple of cable networks that like to book in the morning. And then I can do my network stuff and other things after 1 o'clock when those things start to get hot. So radio imaging is fun, and I love being a part of it. It's really great.
Are most of your jobs through your agent? Acquiring those stations and that, or do you have other avenues?
Yeah, a lot of it comes that way. Most of it, and this is what's so fun about a lot of voiceover. Work begets work, somebody hears you on, I was doing Pictionary, with Alan Thicke years ago in the 90s. And, another Deal or No Deal came on the air in 2000. They had heard me doing that. And then when I was doing Deal or No Deal, 1 versus 100 came on the air, and they go, let's get that guy. And so work begets work is a lot of it. And in radio, program directors move around, and like I have one program, Chris Ebbett, who I love. I worked for him at K-Earth 101 in Los Angeles. I think I've done like 6 radio stations with him over the past 15 years.
That's a great relationship.
Nice. Market to market to market to market. And so, yeah, there's a lot where your agent might bring you an audition, but I find that a lot of it is just programmers and what they call now format captains. Like Entercom will have a certain program director who's in charge of all of the classic hit stations for the entire company. And, they're always looking for people, to do their imaging. So it's kind of a mix, but a lot of it is work begets work.
That's great. Joe, is there any genre that might surprise us where you work with any amount of regularity?
I don't do porn as much as I used to.
Hi-yo!
As much as he used to.
As much as he used to. Speaking of Cipriano's big wand.
How about hip hop?
No, do you work on any e-learning or do you do any telephony or anything like that?
I don't. And I think part of it is, listen, I really believe that you have to put your mind towards something. I don't know if that kind of genre would come to me. But if it was something that I thought, you know what, this is something that I would like to add to the genres that I enjoy doing and that I want to go after, I think it would take the effort. I certainly, it's not like I poo-poo anything.
Right.
If it's something that I feel that, I think I can not only add something to this, enjoy doing it, and then maybe even have a little bit of a success with it. I would, I'm open to any kind of opportunities. And, but other than the ones that I just mentioned, long form narration, I don't do a lot of it, but, I'll do it every once in a while. Audiobooks,
you did your own book, right?
I did our book. Yeah. Living on Air, Adventures in Broadcasting. And I enjoyed doing that. But, it's 60,000 words and wow. And thank God, A.J. McKay, and I had Maurice Tobias, who directed, and Greg Chun, who did the original music for it. It was a big project, and AJ has some sort of account of I don't know how many thousands of emails that went back and forth, because he did all the sound design on it, and I really wanted it to be something different, a little bit more of a radio kind of drama or comedy, or rather than just spoken word. But as far as doing other audiobooks, I don't know. That's I had a taste of it, and that's a lot of work. I'm very good friends
bad
with
taste.
Yeah, very good friends with Scott Brick, who is unbelievable. We just went out to Musso and Frank's last week, and we were talking about that and talking about when authors actually seek out Scott, they want him to be the voice of their book, of their novel, and you have to be in a certain mindset. Some people, it would be very difficult to be in a booth and work hours upon hours, and Scott loves it, and he brings so much to it, and there's so many other narrators who do that. So to each your own, and I don't know if I would do that again. I had enough with doing my own book.
I understand that. Well, Joe, we won't keep you too much longer. If you're ready, I'm going to shoot
ready.
you the email for the Cold Read Challenge. I just sent it. You just pull that bad boy up.
Okay, all right, here we go.
Cold Read Challenge.
And if it's a Word document, just pull it up. If you don't mind, read the direction aloud, and then fire away.
Oh, here it is. It just came in. I'm opening it up. It says Cold Read Challenge. Direction: enthusiastic, energetic, a la Primetime Comedy Network promo. Well, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. This is interesting. The copy is a little bit, okay, I see. So just keep in mind that the direction is enthusiastic, energetic, like a primetime comedy. Here we go. Beep, beep, beep. 98% of us will die at some point in our lives. The darkness is creeping towards you, whether you know it or not, so a little planning can go a long way. Listen, leaving your big old corpse behind for your loved ones to deal with just ain't cool. That's why you should call McCready Funeral Services. McCready's. They'll find the hole and build the box. Bodies that look so good, you're gonna want to talk to it.
Oh my gosh!
I gotta look at this first line again. 98% of us will die at some point in our lives.
Yeah.
Joe, do you know what this is from? This is we do this and we pull these from somewhere.
Okay.
This is at the end of Talladega Nights
Oh,
when
no kidding.
Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly are riffing. This is one of their endorsement deals they got. And so that's the copy they're reading.
Yes, during the credits. Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, my God. That's
funny.
great.
Oh, that's it, man.
Nice job, Joe.
Thank you. Listen,
that
if you
was
can sell
fantastic.
death enthusiastically and energetically,
Love it.
98% of us will die at some point in our lives. Joe, we're going to let you go here, but just some final words of encouragement and to help people that, maybe are new to this business or they're grinding it out. What can you share, briefly as a closing thought?
And we talk to so many people at all different levels in their career, whether they're just starting out or they're at a kind of like a halfway point where they're working a few times a day. I think no matter what is that commitment, and belief in yourself that you can do this because. It's so overwhelming. There is so much out there, so much information out there. It seems that everybody in the world is a coach, and wants to give you some sort of, information about how you can make it in the business. I think you have to be smart about it. I think the fact that we call it a business, you really have to embrace that. If you treat it like a business, and you show up every day and you put the hours in and you continue to grow, you continue to take classes and work on it. I always tell people, listen, even if you can just put 1 hour a day into it, just do the 1 hour. You'll be surprised if you never miss a day how you can move yourself forward. It's just a matter of committing to it. Quick little story. It was in the book. I had an acting teacher, Wayne Dvorak, who said that there are the gods of making dreams come true up in the heavens. And all they want to do is make people's dreams come true. And when you're working on your voiceover career, for example, and you're working on it every day, and while you're working on it, there's a little red light on top of your head that glows really brightly. And that way the gods of making dreams come true can see you down through the clouds and they see that you're working. But then you miss a day, you get a little busy and I'm not just going to work on the VO thing today. And then your light starts to dim a little bit and maybe you don't do something for a couple of days and the light goes out. Well, the gods of making dreams come true can't find you. They can't see you. It's the people who work on it every day and that light shines brightly. Those are the people that are going to find success in the business and have their dreams come true.
Oh, love it.
That's Get Worthy.
And let me say something else, Kevin and Bobby.
Yeah.
With what's going on right now with coronavirus and all of the cancellations of sporting events. I mean, it's unprecedented.
Oh, yeah.
We've never seen anything like this before. Yeah. But I think it's correct that we're doing it. So the NBA has been postponed. Mm-hmm. At the time that you and I are chatting, there's talks that maybe Major League Baseball will have to be postponed.
And that's
for
happened.
A while.
Yeah.
NHL. It just goes on and on and on. And of course, we're seeing it in our business, in the voiceover business, with the cancellation of conferences. And, again, it's the right thing to do. But here's what's so cool about being in the voiceover community. And that is that we've always been so incredibly supportive of one another.
Yeah.
My colleagues, the people that I work with who do network promos and who are, on movie trailers and working at very high level commercial big companies. We've always looked, all the people that I know, we always look for opportunities to help out people who are coming into the voiceover industry, and whether that is by sharing our knowledge or going to conferences and talking to them. We were doing the first Don LaFontaine VoiceOver Lab fundraiser that was at our house. Ann and I had opened up our house for that. Mm-hmm. And it was a pretty big fundraiser. We had about 220 people that came.
Wow.
And we had silent auctions, and there were all kinds of opportunities to give so that we could create the voiceover lab in Don's name. And I remember the president of the SAG Foundation, that's who we were doing it with, sitting in my living room as people were streaming in the house. And she said, "I've never seen anything like this before." And all of the other entertainment facets where the Screen Actors Guild Foundation is involved with actors who are on camera in movies and TV shows and on and on and on. She had never seen this kind of support from the entire group in a genre of the entertainment industry.
So cool.
And I'm saying this because, listen, Gerald had to cancel a voiceover or postpone voiceover Atlanta. That was a big decision.
Yeah.
And I'm sure financially that's going to be a burden.
Yeah.
The WWRS, the radio summit, which was going to happen the same week and weekend of voiceover Atlanta, that's been postponed. But here's the cool thing, and I said this to Gerald, and I want to say it to everyone listening who is a part of the voiceover industry or is working to get into it. We're the kind of people that are going to be there when Gerald reschedules and VoiceOver Atlanta is coming back later this year. I know I'll be there, and I know that the entire VoiceOver community is going to be there. I told Gerald, I said, get ready. I think this is going to be the biggest VoiceOver Atlanta ever because people are going to show up. People are going to be there to support and to encourage. And I'll be there to coach, and I'll be there to meet people and share knowledge and just have fun, and enjoy and celebrate our community. So, listen, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and it can be pretty scary. Mm-hmm. But I think that, together, obviously, we'll get through it. So I just wanted to point that out. I mean, I think we're pretty fortunate to be in a community like this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
We are, Joe. We're blessed beyond measure in that regard. And I see it all the time. And I've been doing this full-time 15 plus years now. And it still amazes me what a tight-knit group of people that we consider colleagues. Not only competition in a way, there's that aspect. But first and foremost, we're here to help each other and to grow the industry and to lean upon one another. So thank you for saying that. It was perfectly stated. And thanks again for being on the podcast today and giving your insight and your experience and sharing that story, because it is a good reminder of what a great group of people that help make up this great voiceover community. Well, if you want to reach out to Joe for any booking, you can go through his agent, Atlas Talent Agency, or joecipriano.com and find out all the information right there. Joe, thank you so much for your time and being on the Middle Class VO podcast today.
Thanks, guys. And congratulations. It's fun being with you guys.
Thanks, Joe.
Again, one of the best in the business. Just... it never gets old.
No.
Hearing him and talking to him and just enjoying how cool of a guy he is and how giving he is to this industry that we all work in.
Yeah, loves us some Joe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, great job again, Bobby, as usual. And make sure and join us again for our next episode of the Middle Class VO podcast.
Yep, and check us out on all the social outlets, too. We're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook, and we're on Podbean. And subscribe and just join us every time we have a new episode. We enjoy it.
The Middle Class VO Podcast is a K2 Media Productions production.
All views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests. The McVob jingle was written and produced by Kevin.
Co-produced and performed by Chloe Dolandis.
Additional engineering by Zach Zimmett.
Bobby's hair and makeup by Rebecca Adlita.
Kevin's wardrobe by Slippery Pete's Fashion Emporium.
All previous episodes are available for download on Podbean.
For the Middle Class VO Podcast, I'm Tracy Thibodeau.
I'm Lisa Lou Perry.
Thanks for listening.
And don't miss the next episode of
The Middle Class VO Podcast. The Middle Class VO Podcast.
the way we do like our own little clapboard sound, Joe, to sync everything. So if you will follow Bobby and I's cue for our clapboard sound, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And then we'll do the intro after that.
Cool.
So here we go. Caw-caw.
Caw.
Caw-caw.
You sounded injured.